Hey everyone, welcome to Behind the Emerald Veil podcast with Ali and Mandy from Soul Star Energy Collective. We are spiritual teachers, we are intuitives, healers, and we are two moms that like to get together and just talk real.
We're also bankers.
Ew, I do not identify as that.
Your intro was so soft and pleasant today.
Yeah. Oh, cute. It's been all cute.
Yeah. You're very
I've never
calming.
Cute. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
It just made me think because I'm kind of like I don't know. I'm not like that cute. I'm more of like I'm like
the loud.
Yeah, and I don't even know what
abrupt.
Abrupt? Am I abrupt?
I would say you're loud, like you're not loud. Yeah, and you're excitable. That's a good
excitable word. Yeah, so not usually that like calm type of thing, but when you were saying that, it made me think of like last night, just a little story. It's embarrassing. Why am I sound
I love awful. Your embarrassing stories. Always coming with the embarrassing stories.
Well, Thank you. I'm just so honest, and then sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, it's kind of like people are gonna get the wrong idea. So last night I farted in my son's face.
I was not expecting that.
So am I really cute and graceful now?
Oh no, that's not. So funny.
Okay, well, to be fair, he always like, I don't know if that's a boy thing, but he'll like come and be like, hey mom, I got a question. And I'm like, Carter, get out of here, you're so disgusting. And so I don't even know, like sometimes I get these like urges to
do it back.
Well, no, not even just urges. Like sometimes all of a sudden I'll just have this random thought and I'll just do it. And so I was like, I was just like, I came out of my room and he was sitting there and I could feel some gas. And I was like,
percolating.
Yep. And I was like, hey, Carter. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. Hey, Carter. And I turn around.
Oh my God.
He was shocked. He was shocked.
He was shooketh.
He was shook, but then he was laughing, and I'm like, those are the moments I live for.
Yeah,
it's like that we can have these like bonds, and I can just be silly and shock him and not act like an adult. And then
bonds.
And I was like, payback.
So funny.
And then I get a text an hour later from Tanner, who's here, but
he felt left out.
Oh no, I get a text. Did you fart in Carter's face? And I was like, yeah, I did. It's so funny because he does it to both of us. And he was like, well, he just farted in my face as payback.
What? Poor Tanner. He's so pissed at you. Look what you did, Mom.
I'm sorry, Tanner. Why did you take the brunt of it? Oh God. So that was my night last night. And so never call me graceful again. I'm just kidding.
You're right. Well, maybe I will, and we'll get more stories like this.
Oh geez. Okay. So what are we talking about today, Mandy?
Back to regular paid programming. Except we're not paid.
It's volunteer work.
It's fun stuff. We wanted to talk about the empath and the narcissist, because a lot of people who resonate with the empath, being an empath, a lot of times have been or are in a relationship with a narcissist.
Yeah, have either moved through that. Yeah. And I think like part of it, like I know for me, it's come into my awareness more and more and more. This understanding of even what a narcissist is, I think.
Well, that's the thing is, I think that this day and age, it's so nice to have that vocabulary, like that definition of what a narcissist is. Because when I dated a narcissist when I was 18, and the word gaslighting, so these are two, we'll define those two for you, or share the definition. We're not going to create our own definition, but I find like had this definition or this understanding of what a narcissist was back when I was 18, it would have been it would have been easier for me to leave that relationship, knowing that knowing that. So I think knowing what a narcissist is even now is helpful for anybody to see the relationship from from a higher perspective.
Yeah, and all of the things. Well, and I even think though, I've always heard of the word narcissist, but I never really knew
what it meant.
I don't know. Especially when it doesn't come into your life or awareness, like there's no real reason to understand it. But I've definitely have in the most recent years, like this term has just like within around me. I haven't experienced, I think like as a teenager, probably one relationship with a narcissist, but it's around me, it's surrounding me, and it's becoming more and more apparent and aware. And I'm like, wow, I'm like, this is a thing, this is a big thing.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me, that dynamic. But the biggest thing, like, it doesn't mean that a narcissist is only with an empath.
Oh no,
that is the most damaging.
Yeah. Well, let's define, like, what is a narcissist?
Well, first, like, I just want to talk about the empath, because when researching, like preparing for this episode, it feels like very like how we've talked about empath on here has been very much like the energy side of things, being an empath, feeling other people's energies, absorbing energies, going into big, large groups and being drained,
exhausted,
all of that. So I feel like there's an aspect of an empath, or there's different types of empaths. So there's that aspect. But when we're talking about empath in this episode, we're talking about the empath who is like self-sacrificing, kind of like, they actually, like an empath, like when I think about the characteristics of this type of empath, it reminds me of like a starseed. So like this self-sacrificing, very optimistic, a very giving individual, like almost to a fault type of thing, it's where like, they're kind of innocent.
Yeah. And in a way, like we've talked about the wounded empath, and it would be kind of a wounded or the shadow side of an empath in a sense. Yeah. Because there's no boundaries.
There's no boundaries. But it is a beautiful thing. And we need more empaths like this. Like I would say, like, it's not, because I wouldn't even say it's like wounded in that sense, like boundaries, absolutely. But it's like, what a beautiful soul who loves to give. But the problem is that when somebody who likes to take comes in and takes advantage of that giving, beautiful soul. Yeah. So I don't think any empath that is like this, a person that is loving and giving, it's like, you don't want to take that away, because it's so beautiful, but you do want to add in the boundaries, or know your self-worth enough to know that, you also deserve just as much as you give, type of thing. Yeah. In that. So I found that very interesting. Like, I was like, I'm like, there's different versions of this word empath. And we've only kind of talked about the spiritual, energetic side, but there's this other side too. Is
it layered?
Is it yeah.
Everything's got so many layers,
facets, faucets, whatever. Like, so yeah. So I guess like characteristics of let's just say a self-sacrificing empath would be like very loving, attentive, they're caring and giving, very, very forgiving as well. Self-sacrificing, very accommodating, and the sense of like this responsibility of like rescuing another person or saving them, or showing them true love. Like, I will be their savior. If they haven't experienced this before, I will be their savior. The service to others, the nurturer type of thing. So this can be a male or a female, either side.
Very pure soul.
Very, very pure. And just, and that's beautiful. Like, that's so beautiful. And then the characteristics of a narcissist is, we're giving just an overview. Yeah. I have gone in to listen to different, podcasts or YouTubes on narcissists, and there's definitely different types of narcissists.
Well, yeah. And we have our own experience with narcissists and our own understanding. We're not professional therapists, and
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
we haven't, this is just, you come into
Overall.
our podcast because we're sharing our perspectives, and that's about it.
And we're what we've experienced or seen or whatever.
We're not professionals here. So
No. So like, generalize a narcissist. They have a real sense of self-importance. They're kind of caught up on the like power, beauty, success, very entitled, believe in their own like uniqueness, kind of like, I have two that I've witnessed, and both like a male and a female version of this, and it's fascinating to me. Oh, that's the Gemini in me. Like these things where I'm just like, what? Let me understand this. Lack of empathy. Constant need of excessive admiration. Arrogant. Tendency to exploit others for personal gain. Arrogant. Did I say arrogant? Yeah. I said it again. Arrogant.
So you didn't know they're arrogant.
It like difficulty recognizing or valuing others, type of thing. And like, an empath's natural state is to give, and a narcissist's natural state is to take. And that is why that is this pairing is very like dangerous. Like it really is,
You think about the polarity and the duality that we have in this world, and that's very polar opposite of each other. So that relationship can be very, I would imagine, very toxic, very damaging for the empath. And anybody who can come out of a long-term relationship with a narcissist, there's going to be a lot of healing that needs to be done. Because it's almost like I've witnessed these types of relationships as well. And it's almost like they're a flower in full bloom, and then they become they get partnered with this narcissist, and then the narcissist, it's like they start to wilt. It wilts this beautiful, sucking their self-confidence, it's their self-worth, their beauty, their light. It's like everything. And I remember one of the things that happened to me when I was in this type of relationship. And I just want to say, like, there's different reasons why our souls would contract being in a narcissistic relationship. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things that I remember him saying to me all the time was like, and I was 18, so I was just coming out of high school, and I was just going, like, I was a young adult, and I was in that transition stage of like in that in between we talk about, right? I'm in between who I was and who I'm becoming. And I was very naive. Like I was this type of empath at that age. Absolutely. People would tell me all the time, you're so innocent, you're so naive, like you're so like I was just so pure in a sense. And he would say to me all the time, like, he would manipulate me and say, why do you care what your parents say? Why do you always do what your parents want you to do? Why don't you listen to your own thoughts? But really what happened was I was listening to what he wanted me to do. Do you know what I mean? Stop listening to your friends, stop listening to your parents. You can do what you want. Do this, do that, whatever. So it was just a very manipulative type of way to speak to me. And it was putting doubt and fear into my own ability to make my own decisions. So to the point where I just didn't know how to make decisions for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, it's like, so for yourself, and I would say I also had it around the same damn time, a narcissist relationship. And I would say that's my only narcissistic relationship. And so this is where you can kind of see, this was what a great experience, because I look at that as, once I was out of it, I looked back and realized, well, I'm not letting that happen again.
Yeah, me too.
Right? Yeah. And so, but you can see that in our life lessons and stuff.
Yes.
So there's some people that it will happen again and again and again, because that's a pattern, and they're not getting the lesson, and they're not learning from it and moving on. And that's something that their soul has contracted to do, so that they can learn to move on. Obviously that was something that was presented to us, and it was kind of like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that again. But we could have easily not done that and fallen into having this become a pattern, type of thing. And so, and also like looking at that, in that sense, like if you're somebody that's like, oh my God, like I just feel like I attract this certain type of partner, could be on the spectrum of a narcissist or a narcissist. One of those things, it's not what they're coming and doing. It's like what's inside of you that is bringing and drawing, what energy is drawing that person in to you, because we are bringing people into us to highlight something, especially when it's a difficult situation, to highlight something that is needing to be healed within yourself.
Yeah,
and
so
they
just
will keep showing up until
curious. We haven't talked about this before, but I'm like thinking now. I'm like, what do you think it is? Like, just off the cuff, what do you think it is in somebody who attracts a narcissist over and over and over again? Like, what chakra do you think that's tied to?
Solar plexus.
So solar plexus is tied to self-worth and self-confidence and our power center. So when somebody, and that's what I was going to say too, it feels really connected to the solar plexus, and even the sacral, in a sense, of somebody who, because a narcissist in the beginning will make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. So
they love bomb you. Like that's a term I've learned recently, because they will love bomb you, make you feel like amazing. But the thing is, they will love bomb you throughout the relationship too.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, they're very much like, come to me, I'm amazing, you're amazing. And it's like this crazy thing that they are amazing. And until they're not.
I experienced that too. And then I remember the day I realized this was a relationship I shouldn't be in. And it wasn't even long into the relationship, but it was, I was supposed to go, I had plans to go out with my friends to a New Year's party. I think it was a New Year's party. And I don't know if I shared this on the podcast before, but he and I worked at the same restaurant. And he was newer in town. So he just knew like the manager of the restaurant and a couple of other people. But anyway, so I had plans to go to this New Year's party. I was going to take him with me, but we were both working that night, and he had the manager keep me as late as possible so that I would miss the party. I didn't know this at the time, but I got off at like, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night or something like that. And I went into the kitchen because he was in the back. I was in the front of the house. And I was like, hey, I'm going to go to this party. Can you get off? Like, I told my friends I would come, and he got mad at me. And I was like, what? This was like, we'd already talked about this. You were going to come with me and you can't. So I'm still going to show up. Like, these are my closest friends. Yeah. And so it was a conversation, and I was like, whatever. So like in my mind, there's no reason to be upset with me at all, like at all. So then I was like, I went to the party. I had a great time. And then I came back and I went to see him after the party, and I knocked on his door, and he like slammed it in my face. He was like legit pissed. And I was like so confused, because my pure, like naive version of myself back then was just like, what did I do wrong? Like, I have no idea what I did wrong. I told him and I was playing it through my head. And then, so this is what narcissists will do. And it's also called gaslighting. They'll like turn it and make you feel like it's your fault. And I was like, and I was so confused, but I didn't have those terms. I didn't understand that at the time. I was so young. I was seriously so naive. But again, like you said, so grateful for that relationship, because I also was like, no, never again. I'll never.
It teaches you, right? Like it does teach you, because the thing is, when you're in the relationship, you are clouded. You don't see it. And, I know for myself, I've experienced different things within life that, when you're in it, you don't see it. But when you're out of it, you look back and go, oh my gosh, how did I not see this? Like, so there's compassion there for people who are stuck in it. Because it's very hard when you're in it to actually like really see what is happening. It is a form of abuse. Anybody who's being abused, that becomes their norm. So even though from the outside in, it's like, all hello, why aren't you seeing this? Like, do you see how fucking destructive this is? Like, what's wrong with you? And it can be very frustrating on the outside looking in for, whether it's a friend, a family member, a child, whatever, whoever it is. It can be so frustrating to be like, you just want them to get away from this person, or because you love them or you care for them, and it's so hard to see them being treated this way. But and frustrating too, because I know I've gone through times with different friends or family that I've been like, like I'm sitting there going like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Why are you putting up with that?
What are you doing? But like with anything in life, it's like that person has to get to it on their own.
Absolutely.
Even if they can say, hey, Allison, I absolutely agree with you. Yep, I am with a narcissist. I agree with you, all of that. So even if they literally call it out, if they still have to get there on their own, and work through whatever they need to work through. And you can't force that obviously on anybody. And
and it's not easy to leave anybody when we're the age that when we're teenagers. Yes, absolutely. Fuck off. I'm gone. See you later.
But even that, once you're in it, sometimes you don't see it.
Way easier though. But when we're adults and there's kids involved and there's a mortgage involved and there's joint accounts involved and like all that sort of stuff, there's going to be a process. It's going to take, and it's not even going to be a physical process, like as in, doing the actual tasks to disconnect from that person, but also like energetic process, and there's going to be healing that needs to get done, and then there's going to be that uncomfortable phase of being in the in-between.
Yeah, it's like it's so hard, and and I can empathize that, especially like it is hard for somebody who is not in an abusive or relationship or has been in a relationship that your confidence has been knocked down. And so I can't imagine, going through that phase already being knocked down. And that's what's kind of like happening in a narcissist relationship. It's a narcissist, like from what I've witnessed and what I've watched and what I've read, like you mentioned at the beginning, the narcissist is just amazing, right? Like everything you could possibly want and doting, and loves the attention that the empath is giving, and all of these things. And then it just slowly starts just one little thing. And as an empath who's very forgiving and very understanding, you can really rationalize that away or put that aside or whatever it is. And it's one of these, like, it's like this slow progression, because it's not like they all of a sudden just turn evil and then they're assholes right after that, continuing. Like, I'm pretty sure you're gonna be like, okay, well, I don't want to be here anymore. They're really good with like, being that asshole, but then like just loving up on you, love bombing, right? Making you feel the best. And as this little game kind of happens, and it becomes more, I would say, more reoccurring, where this gaslighting, that side of that person comes out, but at that point they've slowly chipped away at that empath's self-worth. That empath, thinking like, gaslighting is crazy, right? Like you literally start to believe what they're saying, and when you start to doubt yourself, that's where it's just kind of like, oh, I must be doing this. And
it's
this is like
it's almost like they're in a fog, or like there's no clarity. They can't see anything clearly.
No, you can't because it's so done slowly and methodically, and it's just
and also like subconsciously, like I honestly don't think a narcissist knows that, oh, like I'm a narcissist and I'm gonna like strategically manipulate this person so they stay with me forever. Like I don't think that's what happens. It's very subconscious, and it's very vibrational, and
which is scary.
It is scary.
Like, and that part of it fascinates me, because in my head I'm like, they truly do not see it.
Mm-hmm.
And they truly believe what they are saying.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm thinking of like one narcissist that I've witnessed in my life, you know, definitely very much like I can see the whole like I'm important. I want to have status. And also like the like always wants to be relevant, always wants to be like, oh, no way. What? Like, you know, wants that attention, that admiration, that attention, all of the things. Will say stories like it's just so apparent. And then when they don't get it, or when that sense of self is threatened, then it's just like gloves off, you know. And one of the things, like I was watching this expert talking about it, and it just really like resonated with me. And one of the things is like when this narcissist doesn't necessarily always want the doormat type of partner, because they enjoy the fight. They enjoy that battle. So if you have a door, you're not getting that.
Yeah, that
cling,
tension.
Cling, cling, cling. And so they like some narcissists thrive off of that battle, off of that back and forth. And you know what this person said was the best the best thing you could do when they are in that state,
a combative state.
Yep. Is to literally not engage.
Yeah.
Not engage.
Yeah.
And I was telling this person in my life about this, and they said, even in this interview, they will go like that's going to irritate the fuck out of them. That you are not picking up the bait, and so they'll go deeper, and they'll go deeper.
They'll cut deeper,
and they'll go deep. Yeah, and they're just going to like, you know, try to get a rile out of you. And so I was telling this person in my life about this, and I said, you know, because I know exactly the state that they're talking about, because this, you know, they have their partner has done this with them, and I said, if you want to hold your power, you know, in that moment, the best way for you to hold that power is not to come back and be like, excuse me. I'm like, if you truly want to stand in your power in that moment, and you're wanting that person to like, because, you know, when you're coming back, you are jabbing back to try to get them to feel a certain way, or whatever.
Well, you want to make them feel the way that they're making you feel.
Yeah. So I was like, you know, if you actually do want to like make them like, I'm like, and literally do not engage.
Did they try it?
I'm not sure. I think like part of the, you know, they mentioned to me that they're like, yeah, but you know, it can get like, some of the stuff really triggers me. And I'm like, yes, but if you are aware of it, if you're going into it knowing that that's what's going to happen, that's what they're searching for, and they're going to keep trying to trigger. I'm like, but if you can imagine that, if that's going to make it, if you talking back and you want that kind of reaction versus not saying anything, you're going to get it that way. You know what I mean? Like, instead of combating back, countering back, if you literally, like, to me, I would be like, good, I'm glad I'm making you feel uncomfortable.
Working.
I'd be like, I would be standing in that like zip. Like, the moment I found that out, that is what you could do, that is going to piss them off
even more
than countering. I'm like, that would be me 100%. I'd be like, and we're done. And you can go sit in your fiery mood and just get all mad. And I'm like, because at the end of the day, you literally, you know, you get nowhere with that. When that person's in that state. And I have witnessed that state that this person gets into. And I'm like, it doesn't even matter what you say. Not one thing is going to get them out of that state other than time.
Yeah, because it's like they're stuck in that vortex that keeps you sucked in.
Yeah. And so what is the point of even engaging with it?
Absolutely.
When nothing is going to stick or anything. And I'm like, and so you step into your power and say, when you have calmed down, I would love to talk about it. Until then, we are not talking.
I used to say that To my
back off.
children. Yeah, I used to say that to my children.
It's like when they needed to calm down.
Yeah, when they were like having a temper tantrum, like when they were little, right? So basically, you need
Mm-hmm.
to treat a narcissist like a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're done, your temper tantrum, let me
Yeah.
know and we can talk about it.
Oh my God. And it is so true because what I have witnessed is literally a tantrum. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you do have to go into that parenting style to be like, you good? Okay, let's talk.
And you know how you always need to have snacks when you have a toddler? The snacks could be like
Yeah.
little like compliments. Oh, you look so nice, just to keep them appeased.
Just keep them appeased. Oh God, I cannot handle it. Oh my goodness. So, you know, um, yeah, so I'm like, so like obviously there can be narcissistic relationships without the other partner being an empath, right? Like it doesn't mean, it just means, like talking about the empath, it's just meaning like that is the most damaging type of relationship. And it's hard to, especially an empath, to get out from under that.
Especially as we said earlier, like at this age, I would imagine it's even harder to get out of a narcissistic relationship. And when you say that it's more damaging being an empath with a narcissist, what do you mean by that?
Because so basically, like how I look at it is like you're taking a pure soul and their purity, their natural state of giving, and it makes it even harder for that type of person to get out of it because their natural state is constantly to give and feeling empathy for them. So let's just say so some narcissists will pull on like a traumatic childhood, and that will be their identity. And I do this because of my trauma as a child. I do this because of this. I self-sabotage because of this. Like I do this, and you know what? You're the only one that loves me, and like you're my savior. You're my all these things. So that love bombing, and as an empath, that is like, oh my God, like I am their savior.
Yeah.
And you have so much empathy for that there's this sense of like responsibility. Like I can't do that. I can't be that person to do that to that person because there's so much empathy there. And I would say it's most damaging because it's also the hardest to get out of because just that state of an empath, because they're so forgiving, because they have that savior, like, the narcissist can easily manipulate that, and manipulate that in the way that like hooks into that empath, right? So, for me, for instance, I definitely have that sense of the empath where like saving somebody. And I have noticed that trend within my relationships that not necessarily, they're not narcissists, but they are people that have had trauma. And it's like I take on this role to carry them, to help them. And so I can really understand that sense of responsibility there. And that was really hard for me to walk away from many relationships. But my most recent one, there was this sense of responsibility that I felt like, what if I was to go and they become an alcoholic? What if I was to go and they just kind of crumble? Because I feel like I've been carrying them, I've been keeping them away from that. But if and then you hold that weight of responsibility, and because you care so much and you're so empathetic, that really is a real mind fuck to get around. So I could not imagine if, like, in my situation, that partner wasn't telling me these things. The partner wasn't saying, you saved me, you keep me from this, you're my hero. They weren't saying that. If they were, I don't know if I would have, if I, like at this point right now, if I would have left, because
I had the power.
Yeah, because I already had that within me. So if I constantly had that the whole relationship, being told from the other person, holy shit. So that's where I see the damaging part of it. And snuffing out that empath's light.
Yeah. So honestly, kudos to anybody that's been able to leave a
Mhm.
narcissistic relationship as an empath, or as
Mhm.
anybody, but like
Mm.
especially as an empath, because man, like it's tough. That's like you're stuck. You like you said, you have they have your hooks, and so it would take a lot of self work, I'd imagine, on your own, not even like out loud. So it would be like you're
Yeah.
in the closet self work kind of stuff in order for you
Yeah.
to gain the confidence and your light back in your power in order to be
Mhm.
able to take that step and leave. But
Mhm.
also, I would imagine even to stay gone. Do you know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
like once there's that once you leave, or if you left, then that person's going to come back tenfold, and then there's going to be even more manipulation. And a lot of narcissists will say stuff like, if you don't come back, I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah. Oh,
Right? That
absolutely.
would devastate me. That would
Oh, like
devastate me.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Like you can't even, function. And another thing like I heard was like the idea of giving up on somebody like is hard, but for an empath, it goes against what they believe.
Yeah, well, it goes against their whole
Their
soul
whole
DNA
being.
and their blueprint, their soul blueprint.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So you're literally going against
Hmm.
what you believe. Um and the fact that you at one, if somebody's making you feel like their hero or at any point, and then like the fact that it's within their DNA, within their being, and that's what's the crazy thing is like, because when you start to add all of it together, when you add in, so you as a this person, you believe in these people, you believe that they can be saved, um this, everybody deserves another chance, all of these things packed on top of that, this responsibility, like I can hold space for you, I'm strong enough,
Hmm.
I don't need this. So like these an empath can definitely put their own needs for sure aside, like even their physical and health needs aside for this other person, so it's like to a detriment to themselves.
Hmm.
And that's what it's just like, it just, yeah, like for me it just like breaks my heart to see um that, to see people moving through that. And so like, you know whether you are in a narcissistic relationship yourself or you're witnessing one of
Mm.
somebody you love, it's hard to kind of see that.
Yeah.
But the spiritual aspect of that is what I have found has helped me with all of that, is being able to take the higher perspective, to be able to step back and be like, okay, I'm going to step back and realize these are soul contracts, these are soul lessons. So even though it's hard, I know that this is what they're meant to play out. I can be here to support when they need me, but I'm not going to allow myself to like exist within that energy and be pulled into it, because like there's my empath. I want to save you,
You want
and I
to
want to
save the
save
one.
you, and I want to
Yeah.
save you. So I'm like, that's the learning the boundaries to realize that, this is part of their soul contract, and it is up to them
Mhm.
to pull themselves out.
And
Nobody else can do it.
yeah, so when we talk about the soul contract, as you know, before we come into this incarnation, we plan everything out. And so the soul of the empath and the narcissist would have met in the spirit world and planned this
Yeah.
whole relationship out beforehand so that it could play out in this play of life that we're doing. And the
Hmm.
purpose, there's going to be multiple purposes
Yeah.
for this contract to play out, but most likely it is because it's a teacher student relationship. In a sense, one of them is teaching, one of them is learning. Most likely the narcissist is teaching the empath a difficult lesson, and the lesson that this empath needs to, in order to get it, like we said, they need to do the work to be able to leave, or to move through that relationship in a different way, or not be affected so much by the narcissist taking their light and taking their power away, however they
Hmm.
choose to do that. So you know, a lot of times it'll take lifetimes for us to learn lessons. And maybe if you're somebody who's left a narcissist and had that power to be able to do that, beautiful. But
Oh,
it's also most likely a lifetime that you've already done a few lifetimes with this narcissist, or with this
yeah.
soul as the narcissist, or a soul as a narcissist. And you know, in this lifetime was the one where you were finally able to break that cycle,
Mhm.
and move through it and move past it. But there's all these mini lessons that go along with being in that relationship as well. So it's like this karmic cycle, like this karmic lesson, but also these little soul evolution lessons that you're learning within that relationship too. And at some point,
Mm.
you know, hopefully people at some point can take what they've learned and heal and move forward from that. But again, I don't want anybody to feel bad if they're in a narcissistic relationship and they're choosing to stay in that relationship for whatever reason. Maybe they have children, maybe it's a financial thing, maybe it's a family thing, or you know, maybe they're stuck in like, or you know, a different country or something like that.
Or
You
they
know,
love them.
or they love them, because you know there is that good side and that bad side. So
Mhm.
don't feel bad if you are in a narcissistic relationship, and we don't want you to feel shame for being in that relationship, because you know you have to honor where you're at and be in respect where you're at. And as long as you can see things from that, you know, that bigger perspective. I think this was the point of our podcast episode today, was so that, you know, just to be able to be at peace with it if that's what you choose to do, and
Mhm.
to see it from that higher perspective. And maybe that'll shift how you move through or how you exist within that relationship.
Yeah, and I think even sometimes, like, it being, like, bringing awareness to it.
Hmm.
You know, there may be some people that are like, "Oh, wait a minute. That sounds like my partner." Um, because we can be blinded to that.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we hear it and all of a sudden it's like sometimes we just need that one click to be like, "Oh my gosh."
Hmm.
You know, like that, where like whether that's a person that identifies with their trauma and they use their trauma against the empath to be like, no, this is because of my trauma. Like every bad behavior is because of my trauma, you know, so have sympathy for me
Well,
because I can't help myself because of this trauma. And I think there's like an awareness there that as much as trauma is awful, and I can't even imagine the amount of work it takes to remove yourself from it. I also truly believe we all have the power to be able to work through it and not identify or take your power back so
hmm,
that
hmm.
this isn't ruling you. And there is a sense of responsibility to yourself and to others to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, in that part, there may be, you know, people out there that are like, oh my God, like maybe it isn't the trauma. Maybe they're a narcissist and holy
Hmm.
crap, they've just put a wool over my head and now I'm seeing it or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Taking
You
the
know,
blinders off.
you taking the blinders off, pulling back your power, you know, and pulling back your power takes time because,
Hmm.
you know, that there's a lot of baggage and the layers to unravel if you've been in a narcissistic relationship for a long time.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's your norm. That
There's
is your
gonna
norm.
be, we suggest therapy and energy
Mhm.
healings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and also like even in that sense too, um even like that inner child's work and stuff, because there also is doesn't mean just because you're an empath you don't have your own baggage.
Hmm.
There's also stuff within you that, you know, that you know, the fact that your self-worth is getting affected. You know, there could be things within childhood that you're kind of like, oh, so it's like taking that lens and putting it on yourself and kind of
Hmm.
like it's like rebuilding yourself from within to be like, wait a minute, no, I do deserve
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
You know, I think like I know somebody in that they definitely are the empath, and they try to justify being the giving because that's
Hmm.
just their state. I just like to do that. So like there's nothing wrong with that. I like to do that. Absolutely there's nothing wrong with that. That is so beautiful.
Hmm.
But there is something wrong when all you do is give, and it's not reciprocated. And it doesn't mean because I can hear people saying, yeah, but I, you know, I don't give so that I can get back. 100%, right? Like you're giving just so you can get back, or expecting to get back. Is that really giving? But there is a very fine line of like giving and being taken advantage of.
Well, when you're talking about that, it's almost like you give, but it's also like, how is that person receiving it? So are they receiving that and giving you back? Like in a sense, it's not like what I'm giving you something, what are you giving me? It's more of like, how are you receiving what I'm giving you? Right? If I'm giving you all of this love and all of this attention or all of the things that I'm doing within the household or whatever, however it is that you're showing or you're giving, like how is that being received by the person that you're giving it to? Are they receiving it with with love? Are they sharing with you their appreciation? Are they happy with it? Or is it never enough?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it met with grumpiness or with like it should have been that way? Like I remember a friend and she was like a stay at home mom taking care of the kids and her husband worked and stuff and she was very busy. Like she was always doing stuff around the house and all these things. She was I admired for her for all the things she got done.
Yeah.
And I remember her telling me her husband came home one day and he said, you stay at home all day, these appliances should be spotless. Like it was like he saw a fingerprint on the stainless steel fridge and he was like pissed about it. And she
Oh
goes,
my God.
and she was heartbroken, that hurt
Yeah,
her
of
feelings
course.
because he didn't see the clean sink and the meal that she just prepared for the whole family. You know what I mean? Like he was pointing out so how was it received is what I want to share. Do you know what I mean? But I also wonder, do you think a narcissist can heal themselves? Because, perhaps there's somebody listening to this podcast episode and they're like, oh, dang, like maybe I'm the fucking narcissist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and this person, if that's you and you're like, wait, maybe I'm the narcissist. I gaslight my partner or I don't, you know what I mean? Like I think if you're listening to this podcast, probably you're going through some sort of spiritual awakening or you're starting to question those things about yourself. But I feel like a narcissist can heal themselves and can definitely start to do the work to understand their trauma and where it's rooted so that maybe they don't react in that way. But I don't think a narcissist is, unworthy of love or unhealable in any way at all.
No, me too. I do think though, I think it's harder because if you
Probably.
can't recognize, and that's a big characteristic of a narcissist, they don't recognize any of this. And even if you were to say you're a narcissist, there's no comprehend, like, no, I'm not. Because they don't have that ability to even see that or allow that. And this is where I find it very curious about this because I definitely am somebody that can self-reflect a lot. And so I will, if somebody was to get mad or something, I'm very good at sitting back and looking at my part in that. And so that's where I kind of find this fascinating, that how can somebody not see that they're doing this? But if they have this overinflated idealism of themselves, they can never do wrong. So do I think that a narcissist can heal? Yes. Do I think that's a rarity? I do. I think that is a rarity. I think there would have to be some big thing to shake their core. And I also think because there's different levels of narcissism, depending on what kind of narcissist that person is, can they heal it? Now, in the sense of somebody with a narcissist, this is one thing that I've heard over and over and over from the different doctors that I've watched, the interviews. You cannot save them. You absolutely cannot. So this is not something that you can take on, because an empath will think you can take this on. This was a big aha for me when I realized, I can never save somebody. They have to save themselves. And, being able to recognize that is huge. And so I would never want an empath to think, well, I can just help them and I can save them and I can do all of these things. That has just been the biggest message across the board from multiple experts in this field, is like, you can't. Can't.
So what would you
they have
say?
to be on their own to do it,
What would you say if if we have a couple of empaths listening to this episode and they're like, dang, I'm in a narcissistic relationship. How do I get out of this? What would you suggest they do? For me, I think the first thing where I would start, or if I had somebody come to me and be like, I don't even know where to start, I think it would be therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, going to therapy, be self-reflecting, like what
Mhm.
part of you is, especially if this was a reoccurring thing,
Mhm.
what wound within you is drawing this type of energy in. But like going to therapy, being able to talk this out, a lot of self-reflection, because with self-reflection, it's not just finding the wounds in yourself that are needing to be addressed. It's also, finding where your power has been given away and being able to start to call that back.
Mhm.
But talking it out with a therapist, especially one that is maybe specializes with
Mhm.
narcissism, because it
Mhm.
is a very unique
Yeah.
person to deal with, because they're very charming.
They're tricky.
They're tricky, really tricky energy, very charming, very good with their words, very good with their words.
Yeah.
Like they're very good at getting out of situations, convincing other people, convincing you that you're crazy. All like that's where it's the trickiest thing,
Mhm.
because it's so good. Like
Yeah.
I've sat back and gone, wow, good job. Like, wow, that was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I couldn't imagine being in that vortex with them and them being so good
Mhm.
at playing the strings.
Mhm.
And again, not even realizing it, which baffles my mind, where I'm like, oh my God, they don't even know they're doing it. I'm like, how are they so good at something they have no idea that they're doing?
Right? Like if you could get paid for being so good at being a narcissist, you'd be
Oh
a
my
millionaire.
God. Yeah. Like I was just like, there's times that I'm like, that is brilliant. Not in a good way, but brilliant. And I'm like, and the moment they start to catch on that you're catching
Catching
on,
on? Yeah.
it's like all stops are pulled out.
Yeah. Yeah.
All stops. So they know, that's the thing. A narcissist will know your cracks. A narcissist will know your weak points.
Mhm.
And that's when they'll like pour on it. So if the weak point is, oh, I have trauma, I'm like, I had a really hard, blah, blah, you're my savior, blah, blah, that will amplify 10 times. If your weak point is your self-worth, if they all of a sudden saw that crack, ooh, there's some self-confidence issues here, right?
Mhm.
Then they're gonna go straight for that guttural punch,
Mhm.
and they will amp it up big time. So I think like, it's those parts of like, also I think researching it,
Mhm. Oh
that is
yeah. Do that
power.
first.
Yeah,
Do
like
that first.
I've sent the people in my life videos, not in the sense like, not in the sense to be like, look at this because you need to go, and like, but it's like awareness is key of anything.
Mhm.
And when you can actually be like, oh my God, I did not know that this was happening, or this is actually happening, this is a thing. That awareness gives you strength.
Yeah.
And so I think like researching it, all of the things, understanding the narcissist,
Mhm.
that gives you power,
Mhm. Mhm.
so yeah, I hope that,
Was helpful?
yeah.
Well, we speak directly to the empaths because we are empaths, and a lot of us who are listening to this podcast are empaths,
Mhm.
and a lot of us will or have fallen into the trap of going into a narcissistic relationship,
Mhm.
and so hopefully this has given you a little bit of power or a sense to give you back some of your power, so you can either avoid or leave or shift
Mhm.
things in some way or another,
Yeah.
or help somebody or hold space for somebody that you love that is in a relationship like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I do think that there can be a power dynamic switch within a narcissistic relationship. Will you be able to cure them? I don't know. I don't believe you will, but I do believe you can start to pull back some of your power within it.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, you can decide if that's what you're willing to tolerate or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thanks for a great combo.
I love it. I love talking to you.
I miss being in person though. We were just talking about this.
We do.
Yeah. Because we are doing Zoom so we can put on YouTube, but I don't even know if it's worth it. Maybe we should just be in person again.
Yeah, tell us, guys. What do you think? I'm like,
Yeah.
would be curious. Like, is when we're in person, or there's more dynamic? I don't know. I'm like, but I do miss the in person.
Me
So,
too. All right.
okay, I'll smell you later.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. We have no announcements.
Oh my God. But follow us on Instagram at Soulstar Energy Collective. Come join us in our free community on Mighty Networks. Soulstar Lightworkers. You know, it's all people who love this stuff and, you know, talk, chat, all the things. So, yeah. And if you're interested at all in ever developing your own intuition or strengthening that, we offer courses. Did you know that? And we do readings. So if you're like, I'm really lost.
And healings.
You do all of it. You can even do a reading and a healing little packy do. Yeah, we love it. So there you go.
Okay.
That's my plug.
See you next
time.
Bye.